Welcome to the MSP Corner podcast, led by our CEO, Fernando Leon, and co-founder and CEO of our MSSP, Gregory Morowitz. Each week, the MSP Corner is committed to delivering critical information for the IT service firm industry. We will discuss proven strategies for marketing, attracting an audience, how to become the influencer for an industry, selling value, scaling your IT service business, and building a sustainable IT service firm. Welcome to show number 1. This is Fernando Leon from the MSP Corner, and we have launched our very first podcast, and today we're going to be interviewing our own CEO from our own managed security service provider company, Single Point of Contact. We're going to be discussing a journey Gregory started many, many years ago because of the necessity. He started off an MSP side hustle or a break fix side hustle back in the day, back in the 90s. And we're going to explore how that all developed and his process, because I met Gregory in 99 and we became fast friends, and lo and behold, we've been working for for over 2 decades now. So I'm going to allow Gregory to take a moment to introduce himself and fire away, Gregory.
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Single Point of Contact. We started out as a sole proprietorship in '99, and then we moved on into becoming a corporation as it was necessary. So we started out as just a one-man show, and then we kind of, as the need was created, we moved over into a corporation. And I've been running it as the sole proprietorship and as the corporate CEO ever since we first started. So
That's great. And that's man, that's a long time, Greg. That's 24 plus years now. So
yeah.
I don't know if you're keeping track of that time, but that's quite a journey there. But when did you actually get into the IT business? What year did you start, and at what capacity?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I was good with computers. They spoke to me. I was able to manipulate them. They would do whatever I told them to do from whenever I was a child. So I've always been building my own computers and repairing people's computers. I was always the relative that could set up your house network and fix your computer when it was broken. So ever since there was computers, I've been working on them.
Wow, wow, that's impressive. Now, when you started your IT business, which is, it can be challenging, especially back in the late 90s. We didn't have all the bells and whistles for marketing as we do today. Um, how did you? What was an approach you took to generate new business? Because if you're starting off as a one man show, you only have so many hours a day, right? You only have so much bandwidth. You can't really scale yourself. You can't clone yourself. So what did you do? But first, let's first touch on, how did you get your first client? I mean, what did if you can remember that far back, what was your approach? And what did you do in order to build that trust would be a better question.
Well, back when I was young, I was in the military and I had gotten out of the military, and my first job I got was at Visa as a IT help desk administrator. And being young, being in my early 20s, I decided that I needed to work another job. So I got another full-time job after my full-time job. So I had two full-time jobs, basically 8 hours in the morning, 8 hours at night. And I would have my secondary job was as a network administrator at a catering company in San Francisco, where I would, make sure all their computer systems were working and that their server, which was a Novell server at the time, was functional. I had to troubleshoot that and work with that. In the evenings, I would bring them down and I would do more. So I was able to have two full-time jobs. And what would happen is that at night I would, people would roll through my social circles that were also working at night, and they would ask me, because from a social perspective, I was able to make friends with people who also had night jobs, who also, and during the day, people would come and go from Visa that were also friends of mine. And I would talk to them, I would interact with them, and they would tell me of needs that companies they'd move on to would have. Um, so I would be attuned to that. And my friends were also network people. So a person would call me up and say, "Hey, do you know anyone's looking for work?" And I would say, "Yeah, sure, I know someone looking for work." But rather than just handing over their name, I would think to myself, "Hey, why don't I just front that person as a temp or as a consultant through my own gig, right? Through my own company." So that's where I would start. I started where people would be coming to me with their needs, and I would be filling their needs with my friends. It was all really an inter-friendship type of social thing that I was doing. I was just having people connecting with other people, but I was taking a little bit of off the top. It wasn't much. It was like maybe 10 or 5% off the top of someone's wage, but I would have like 9 or 10 of my friends working for me as consultants, and 5 or 10% of each of their salaries wasn't bad at the time.
So it sounds like this is what I'm getting at from, and I hope the message gets across to some of these guys that are listening is that in order for you to network, you got to have a great personality because you and I, we've known each other for so long. You do have a very um engaging type of personality. You're funny, you're engaging, you're a very nice person. So, and I've met I you and I both know how many IT people we know, and some of them can be a bit not the most social people. So we're going to and what I'm trying to get at is these IT guys that want to start their own business, they need to learn to be social. They need to get out of their comfort zone if they plan on building trust, building relationships, and building a business. Is that accurate? Would you say that's pretty accurate?
I give it an 80-20 rule. I'd say 80% of the people who are social are going to be able to network, and and be and get opportunities to come before them. But there's also the 20% of those people that you talked about that are very shy, or they're not good. They say the wrong things. But I'll tell you, some of them are really smart. And so if you're unique in that you have a skill like uh programming, a little bit long, maybe Java programming or Ruby on Rails programming, where you're special, you have a skill set that people are in need of, so that then you can kind of be not the best person, not the friendliest person, but you have the skill that someone needs. And if you are at least identifying yourself as a person that has those skills, you can trump the social people. You can bypass them. But you're right. For the most part, you have to network. But if you don't network, you just have to be really smart, or you have to have some sort of unique skill set, like back in the day in the 2000s, when people had those Fortran skills and the Bizarro Vax and VMS skills. They didn't need to be social, because
Yep.
people were begging them to come and work for them and program, the 2000 millennial bug out of their system. So they were rolling in the dough because they didn't have any social skills, but they definitely had a skill. So yeah, I agree. Social is never going to hurt you, but if you're like, "Oh, I'm never going to be social. I'm never going to be the person that you're talking about here," then just be smart or be unique, and you'll get jobs.
Do you think that building trust is a large component to generating new business? Because I talk to IT people that are starting off in the MSP business, and I told them one of the things that you get from Gregory is he's very trustworthy. He's credible. He has integrity, and he knows his technology. But do you think trusting somebody, especially if you're gonna start an IT business, do you feel that the person you're going to hire as that's going to hold the keys to your kingdom, do you need to have that feeling of, I need to be able to trust this person?
Well, I think it's tied with value. You talk about value in a lot of your other podcasts. I think trust and value have to be go hand in hand. If you are trusted but you don't provide any value, then who cares? And then
Yeah.
there's that age old axiom we talk about, you and I, all the time, where it's, do you want it fast? Do you want it cheap? Or do you want it done right? So I mean, fast, cheap, and right, there's no trust component in there. Um, but there's definitely value,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Fast, cheap,
Yep.
and right has the value component in it. What do you value out of those three things um, that you need to get? But yeah, trust is there because if you are untrustworthy, if you steal or you lie or you in some of the higher executive levels circles, if you show up late, if you aren't dressed appropriately, if you don't say the right words, if you don't send the right kinds of emails that have the right, the right data in it, you're gonna find that you can go from 0 to 100 on the trust meter by a lot of these things you've never even thought about. Like, for instance, like I said, you and I have even been in scenarios where if you're late, they'll fire you. They'll just basically fire you
Yep.
because they're thinking to themselves, this person is not trustworthy because they can't manage their time, or they're late because they have other, they don't hold me as their number one client. They should be early. All these other things, these strange requirements some of these people have. Some of them are like, you have to be a local person, you have to live locally, or you have to drive a certain. I've been told that if you come to a site where your car is dirty and the customer sees that your car is dirty, they may think of to themselves, this person is unhinged. They can't even keep their car clean.
Y-
But yeah, trust is a hard one because of the fact that you and I have different ideas of what trust is from some of these executives and other things. But I say yes, trust and value are tied.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's true. I mean, there are many components to building that relationship, or when you engage with the prospect. But what I've been telling a lot of these IT CEOs, or these admins that want to start their own MSP, is that I put a lot of emphasis on, if you plan to start an MSP side hustle, you're going to have to approach people that trust you, that know you're reliable, that know you're credible, that know you have a skill set to support their IT requirements. There's four very key components that they need to have if they want to land their first client. Because people, networks are, they have to be stable, they have to be operating, they have to be, you got to resolve problems, there's so much to do when you're responsible for a network. So if these guys are looking to go on, and they don't have one reference to speak up for them, they're going to have to approach family members, former colleagues, friends of friends, right? So they're going to have to approach people that know them, that know they're people of a person of integrity. And that's the point that I want to make, that if you want to start an MSP side hustle, you need to check off a few boxes. And I never thought of the clean car clean car concept, because yeah, if you drive up to a business and your car is just a mess, you're right. The CEO might look at that and go, is this guy's life in order? Right? Because yeah, I agree with you. If someone's car is just a mess, it might be a message of, hey, my life is out of control. So I agree with that. I didn't include that in my blog of when to, what you need to do to start an MSP side hustle, but it is a pretty funny observation and point you made.
Well, there's also this whole another layer of when you talked about the reference, and you and I have seen this 100 times where the reference has to be a specific kind of a reference. It has to have a specific weight to it. It has
Yep.
to be from a specific industry. It has to be from a specific set of tasks that you perform there. So you and I have seen where people go, have you worked with companies with 100 people in it? Have you worked with a company that has an ERP system? Have you worked with this piece of software? Have you done they ask you all these questions that, you know, I pretty much can tell you I can work with that system if I've worked with a similar system. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear you've worked with that particular kind of system, that you have done the work that they're asking you to do before. But if you haven't done it, you can't get the job. Therefore, you can't get that experience ever. So it's kind of like a chicken egg situation, or something where it's a catch 22. You can't get jobs that want you to have the experience, and you can't get the experience if you don't work the jobs, right? So you're in these references you're talking about are extremely complicated, and this. You're on the sales side versus me, which is kind of doing the operations. It's like, if have you ever set up a Gmail account? Yes. And then they go, well, have you ever set up a Gmail account for a government? No. And it's like, okay, we don't want to work with you. And you're like, well, how much different can it be? You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to, and then you find out that it isn't. It's just maybe getting it from a different vendor. And you're like, well, who cares? But the person doesn't understand that. They only understand that if you've done it before 100 times. I don't know how you're going to have done it before 100 times without the references, but how are you going to get these 100 references if none of the other references are going to be available to give you any more references? You know what I mean? There's a catch 22. There's a what came first thing, and you don't know. You can't get the job. So that's even more complicated. But if you have a family member who works in the real estate industry and has a 100-person company, then you can get that reference. But how many other verticals do you want to attack? If you can't get references in these other verticals, you can't attack them very well because you don't have the references.
Yeah, well, that's for another show. But what I'm trying to get at here is, if you plan to build an MSP side hustle while working your full-time job, you need to approach people that know you, that know your
Absolutely.
skill set, that
I agree.
know you're credible, right? I mean, that's the only way you're going to be able to build a side hustle, because you can't approach a business that doesn't know you. They don't
Right.
know you from Adam. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if you want to build an MSP side hustle, you need to approach family members, friends, former colleagues, friends of friends that know you, because they know your character, they know your skill set, they know that you're reliable, they know that you're not unhinged, right? You're trustworthy. Because if you're not, if they need to know that you're trustworthy, because if you're not trustworthy, they're not going to give you the keys to their kingdom. It's just not going to happen. So these IT administrators that are looking to start their own IT firms, they really need to think about, step before they step out of their full-time job that puts food on their table, a roof over their head. They need to get a full understanding that, look, if you're going to build an MSP side hustle, you got to have a list of people you can approach today that will give you the keys to those kingdoms. And that's the point that I'd like to make on this podcast, is because a lot of these guys, they want to start their own business, and that's great. They have the ambition, they have the energy, they have the skill set, and we both know it's not hard to start a corporation. It's not hard to start an MSP, because you now have resources that we're going to provide on the MSP corner, where if you need a 24/7 SOC and you have an opportunity and you're like building a side hustle and you're like, I'm not going to leave money on the table, but if I go to the MSP corner, they have resources there to help me close this opportunity, because a one-man show, as we both know, needs to sleep, go on vacation, and they're going to call in sick. So, but when you go to the MSP corner and you have a resource there that can fulfill a 24/7 help desk or deliver a managed IT service model or a 24/7 SOC, you won't hesitate. You won't pause and think, can I deliver this? And that's the message that I'd like to get across to a lot of these young entrepreneurs that are going to get into the MSP business, is that, look, don't sell yourself short. Don't walk away from the money, right? Because there are resources that will help you build MSP side hustles. So you're not limited, or you're not there's no limits to your growth, right? You can scale. There's no longer a question of, can I work 80, 90 hours a week? No, you don't have to work 80, 90 hours a week. What a lot of these IT guys need to learn how to do is delegate. You're a great
Yeah,
delegator. You're good at
yeah, I
delegating.
agree. I agree with
But
everything you said. And if you don't have friends and family, you might want to just think about getting another job after your regular job, because then you're like I did, you're going to get these connections, you're going to make friends at your new job, your night job, or your swing job, or your afternoon job. You're going to probably going to make friends there with other people like you, who are maybe even working a second job, and then they're going to be usable with you for you in the future, as techs, as employees, as consultants as well, or they might know somebody. So socializing, using your social networks, like you said, your friends and family. But if you don't have enough of those because you're young, you need to go out and make some. So you
yep,
definitely have to go and get a job somewhere, like as a tech support person, and then become friends with as many people as you can. Just be as friendly as possible, and you will grow from those friendships.
I agree. I agree. Well, we went over our allotted time. I only want to keep these podcasts at 20 minutes. So
All right.
we're coming to the end here, and I appreciate you making time for me. And we'll be producing another show soon. Thanks for listening. If you have not joined the MSP Corner, go to mspcorner.com.